Today, we're going to dive into one of the most powerful, most influential poems ever written, Ovid's Metamorphoses. And we're going to see it through the eyes of one of its most tragic figures, Medusa. Because this epic story, at its very core, isn't just about gods and heroes. It's really about one single, relentless idea that shaped her fate and Ovid's entire universe, the idea of change. Right here, the very first line of the poem, Ovid hands us our roadmap. This isn't just some fancy opening line, it's the engine for every single thing that's about to happen, from the birth of the cosmos itself all the way down to the horrifying transformation of a beautiful, innocent priestess into a monster. Everything is constantly and often violently becoming something else. So where do you even begin a story about constant change? Well, for Ovid, you have to go back to the very, very beginning. Because in his world, transformation isn't just an event that happens in the world, it's how the world was actually born. It's the fundamental law of everything, and it sets the stage for every tragedy that follows. Ovid's idea of the beginning is just fascinating. It's not emptiness, not a void, it's chaos. And what he means is, imagine every possible ingredient for a universe: hot, cold, wet, dry, hard, soft, all just smashed together in this lifeless lump, all at war with each other. It's pure, messy, unrealized potential, just waiting for someone or something to come along and give it shape. And right out of that chaotic mess comes the very first great metamorphosis. Some unnamed divine force steps in and starts sorting things out. It pulls the land away from the sea, the sky from the earth. Then it fills these new spaces, gods in the heavens, animals on the land. And as the grand finale, it creates humankind, a creature with reason designed to be in charge. So you see, the world itself is a product of transformation. That even humanity itself can't stay the same. Ovid lays out this tragic timeline where human nature degrades over time. We start in this perfect golden age, a time of peace where no one even needed laws. But then comes the Silver Age, the Brazen Age, and finally the Iron Age. With each step, humanity gets a little darker, a little more violent. And it's in this final, corrupt Iron Age that the world becomes a place where the awful injustice of Medusa's story is even possible. Okay, so we've gone from the cosmic scale all the way down to the personal. Because in Ovid's universe, the most powerful forces of change are often the gods themselves. Their whims, their desires, they can completely rewrite a mortal's life in a heartbeat. And no story shows this terrifying power more clearly than that of Medusa, who is a priestess of Athena, known everywhere for her incredible beauty. And this just lays it all bare, doesn't it? The unbelievable power gap that drives these stories. On one side, you have gods with unlimited power, and on the other, you have mortals, whose own beauty becomes the very cause of all their harms. Medusa was desired by Neptune, the god of the sea. She refused him. But in this world, a mortal's refusal means absolutely nothing to a god. He assaulted her inside the one place she should have been safest, the temple of Athena. And this relentless pursuit, it's a horrifying pattern. Just look at the story of Io, who was desired by Jove, the king of the gods. For him, desire is a chase. Her terror is completely irrelevant. The only thing that matters is what he wants. This is the exact terrifying reality Medusa faced. A god's desire isn't a romance, it's a conquest. Just look at how things spiral for poor Io. It's a cascade of horrors. Jove tries to hide what he's done by transforming her into a cow, but that just makes everything a million times worse. The transformation isn't an escape route, it's a brand new cage. And this is the exact same twisted, cruel logic that's about to play out in Medusa's life. Her transformation will also come not from her attacker, but from another god, one who is just as cruel. And just in case you thought, well, maybe that's just Jove, Ovid makes it really clear. Nope. He gives us the story of Apollo and Daphne. You'd think Apollo, the god of poetry, of reason, he'd be different. But the moment he's filled with desire, all that reason just vanishes, replaced by the same predatory drive. It shows that no god is above this kind of terrifying cruelty. I mean, listen to this. The logic is just chilling. As Daphne is running for her life, Apollo is yelling after her, basically saying, "Hey, slow down. Don't you realize who I am?" He thinks his own godliness is a reason she should stop running, that she should submit. He is totally, completely blind to her terror. And that same divine blindness is what sealed Medusa's fate. So, a god's desire can change you.
But sometimes the transformation is a flat-out punishment. It's a penalty for a mortal who crossed the line. But here's the question at the very heart of Medusa's story. What happens when the mortal is completely innocent? What happens when the line was crossed against them? Because after she was assaulted in that temple, Athena didn't punish Neptune. She punished Medusa.
To really get the injustice here, let's look at another story first. This is the tragic case of Actaeon. He was a good guy, a hunter, who made one single, tiny, unintentional mistake. He got lost, and he accidentally saw the goddess Diana bathing. He was just in the wrong place at the absolute worst time.
And look at how brutal and fast the justice is. Diana is enraged, so she turns him into a stag on the spot. And then he's hunted down and killed by his own dogs. Now, his crime was an accident, but his punishment was absolute. But here's the key difference. At least he did something that offended the goddess. Medusa did nothing. She was the victim, and yet her punishment was just as horrific.
Can you even imagine this? This is Actaeon's final moment. He's still human on the inside, fully conscious, but he's trapped in an animal's body. He can't scream, "It's me, I'm your master." This specific horror of having your mind trapped inside a monstrous form is precisely what awaited Medusa. Athena's curse twisted her hair into living snakes and made her gaze lethal, cutting her off from the world forever.
All right, so now let's look at the complete opposite of Actaeon's accident and Medusa's innocence. Let's talk about Niobe. Her crime wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate public challenge to the gods. She basically looked at her own life, decided she was better than a goddess, and shouted it from the rooftops.
And just listen to her words. They are dripping with pride. She's mocking the worshippers of a goddess who only has 2 children, bragging that she has 14. She's practically begging for a divine smackdown. This is a mortal who willingly picked a fight, the polar opposite of Medusa, who prayed for help from a goddess and got a curse instead.
The response from the heavens is swift and absolutely devastating. All 14 of her children are killed, and Niobe herself is turned into a stone statue that weeps forever. Now, as terrible as that is, you could argue the punishment fits the crime. But for Medusa, there was no crime. Athena's temple had been defiled, and her rage needed a target. And in a truly grotesque miscarriage of justice, she punished the victim, not the attacker. She turned Medusa into a monster, ensuring no man would ever want her again.
So we've seen a universe literally born from change, and human lives twisted by divine rage and desire. But Ovid seems to suggest there's one last incredible metamorphosis to consider: the transformation of all these painful temporary moments into stories that last forever.
This was Ovid's grand ambition. He wanted to write one single, unbroken poem that would document every major change from the beginning of time right up to his own day. He was trying to take this chaotic jumble of myths, full of cruelty and injustice, and transform it into a timeless, ordered work of art. And you know what? He actually did it. In a way, the greatest transformation of all is what's happened to the poem itself. These stories, especially the deeply unfair story of Medusa, they haven't faded away. They just keep changing, getting retold by painters and writers and filmmakers, always taking on new shapes and finding new meaning for every generation. And that kind of leaves us with this one big, fascinating question. Ovid shows us a world where nothing is stable, not the planet, not society, not even your own physical body. A beautiful young woman can be cursed into a monster. But by writing these stories down, by capturing those fleeting moments of change, Ovid created something that has, somehow, managed to survive. So is that the ultimate metamorphosis? Is storytelling the one thing that can take a fragile, tragic life and make it permanent?